just thought I'd turn on the camera and do a quick little video on meditation because so many people don't understand it, and for so long I didn't either. I think the problem is with the kind of self-improvement sphere is that there isn't really a deep understanding of any one thing. Like, people teach stuff that they've heard from other people, and meditation definitely falls into that category. For so long I didn't really know why I was meditating. Like, I knew it kind of made you calm, improved focus, but I didn't know exactly why. I didn't know really either how to do it. And that is the problem with self-improvement. And a lot of you probably don't know how to do it either. Maybe you're not meditating because of that kind of confusion. So if you can watch this video, I'm going to teach you the exact neuroscience behind why meditation is good for you and exactly how to do it. And if you see me looking down a bit, it's because I've got my notes here. But anyway, to begin with, we need to understand about 3 different sections of the brain that are kind of crucial in shaping our understanding of meditation. And the first one is the left dorsal lateral prefrontal cortex. So basically what that means is like left side of your head, dorsal means on top, and lateral means kind of on the side. So if you're about here, that's where your left dorsal lateral prefrontal cortex is. And this is the part of the brain that is used in interpreting our emotions and different cognitive thinkings. So it's a very important part of the brain, and we use it every day for basically consciousness. A lot of people say that the prefrontal cortex is sort of the seat of that kind of consciousness. Then next you need to understand about the anterior cingulate complex, or the ACC. And this basically is the part of the brain that interprets different bodily signals. So it gets the signals from the heart, like the heartbeat or breathing rate, skin temperature, things like that. Basically it's concerned with everything that's from the skin, there go the notes, from the skin and under. And it communicates directly with the prefrontal cortex to relay this information. And then kind of similar to that is the insula, which again interprets bodily signals like the heartbeat, but adds context to those things because it has some level of exteroception. And what exteroception means, okay, so there's 2 things, there's interoception and exteroception. And interoception is kind of like your ACC, it's what's going on inside of you, it's your perception of that thing. So just to begin with, sensation is all the things that you're sensing, and perception is where you target that, that sensation, where you target your awareness. And so interoception is that, it's targeting your awareness within you, but exteroception is when you target your awareness outside of your skin level. And that's what the insula does. So if it sees that you have elevated breathing rate, elevated heart rate, and it's like, okay, well, what the fuck's happening here? Because clearly something's going on. But if it can see the fact that you're going up a hill, it's like, okay, well, that makes sense. It's not actually a big deal. When it can't see what's happening, that's when you experience things like panic attacks and anxiety attacks, but that's a separate point. Now, like we were just talking about, awareness is a very important thing to understand. And like I say, there are kind of spotlights of awareness. So if you look at something, like I'm looking at my water bottle now, I can kind of put all of my focus on that one thing. If I think about my foot, I can put all of my focus on that one thing. And that focus, it changes. You can make it broader or more acute. So for example, you can think about your foot or just a toe. You can make it more sensitive. It changes a lot. And like I said, that it's interoceptive and also exteroceptive. So they're 2 different things. And different people have different levels of that. So think of it like a continuum, where on the one side you have interoception and on the other you have exteroception. And ask yourself where you fall on that continuum. And a very easy way to tell this is, can you sense your own heartbeat? So if you close your eyes and just think about your heart, can you sense when it beats? And if you can, you're probably quite good at interoception. But generally ask yourself, are you a more interoceptive or exteroceptive person? Do you spend more of your time inside of your own head or on external things? Are you thinking about other stuff in the world or about your own thoughts and emotions? Maybe if you're having a conversation with someone, are you thinking about them and the conversation, or are you thinking about your own mind and the thoughts that are going on inside of your head? Most people are introspective, so you're probably that as well. And that is exactly where meditation comes in, because through different meditative practices, you can strengthen either your introspective focus or your exterospective focus. And there are 2 ways to do that. There's either third eye meditation or introspective meditation, and open meditation, where you focus on the things that are around you. And it's very important before you meditate to decide which one you're going to do. And do both of them, don't just choose one or the other. But what Andrew Huberman recommends is, before you meditate, do an experiment with yourself. Close your eyes and think about your internal environment. And then open your eyes and think about your external environment. And depending on which one you find easier, do the opposite. So say you close your eyes and all you can hear is different sounds from outside, smells, shit like that. Then you're probably in quite an extrospective mood. But if you open your eyes and all you have is an internal monologue going on, then you're definitely in a period of introspection. And when you decide that, do the opposite. So if you're feeling particularly introspective, do an extrospective meditation practice. Working against the grain in this way, working against your default, is very important in the benefits of meditation, in strengthening that focus and that switch between introspective and extrospective awareness. I've just realised I've been saying introspection and extrospection, which kind of mean the same thing, but what I mean is interoception and exteroception. But anyway, let's carry on. So how do you do a third eye meditation? So that's if you decided you need to do an interospective meditation. And the way that you do that is by focusing on this area right below your forehead. And that is in the prefrontal cortex. So a lot of people have this idea of the third eye. And it's quite a historic concept. It comes from like Hinduism, Buddhism, they have this kind of concept there. And scientifically, at least in old science, people thought it was the pineal gland because that has some sort of light sensitivity. But that's just not true for humans. So in our context, the third eye is just here. It happens to be in the prefrontal cortex. So that's where you're supposed to be focusing. And you can do that right now. If you close your eyes and kind of look upwards, is the best way I can describe it. Make yourself go cross-eyed but upwards. You'll feel a kind of pressure in your head at around where the prefrontal cortex is. And it's very interesting because your brain is one of the only parts in your body that doesn't have sensation. So if you've ever watched Hannibal, and you know that scene where he cuts the guy's head open and starts eating his brain out with like a fucking knife and fork, and the guy just doesn't experience any sort of pain or sensation, it's because the brain doesn't have sensory neurons in it. It doesn't feel pain. Every other part of your body does, but the brain doesn't. And so it's very interesting when we kind of point our awareness spotlight at the brain, at that third eye point, because you get inundated with a lot of thoughts and a lot of emotions. In fact, it can be quite overwhelming, quite loud. They kind of come on at random intervals and at random points. And you can experience that literally by just now pause this video and do that for 5 seconds. Stare at that and you'll realize that thoughts keep popping up. That is kind of where you want to be when you're doing an interospective meditation. And then basically the point of this is just to keep bringing your focus back to that third eye area. So every time you get a thought, bring it back to the third eye area. And this is where a lot of the misconceptions with meditation start. Because people think they're not good at meditation. That's such a core belief that so many people have. And I have so many people that come up to me and they're like, yeah, I tried meditating, but I can't really do it. And that defies the whole point of meditation. So you have to understand focus as more of a rapid refocusing than an actual continuous period of focus. So they did an experiment in Japan. I don't know how long ago it was. But they took some people who were experienced meditators and some people who had never meditated before in their lives. And they put them in an MRI machine and played different noises to them. So 20 beeps at different frequencies. And what they found was very interesting. Basically, the people that were experienced at meditating had a more prolonged focus. So on fucking like the 19th or 20th beep, they were still focused. But the people who weren't experienced in meditation had habitualized those beeps. And by beep 10, their minds were focusing on other things. And what they saw in the MRI machine was that this wasn't because the experienced meditators could keep a focus. It was because they could rapidly refocus their attention on the beeps. More of a kind of like blip like that. So no focus, focus, no focus, focus. And that's what meditation develops. So when people say, I'm not good at meditation, my mind keeps wandering. Well, that's the point of meditation. It's like the gym. So think of it like reps almost. Every time you refocus your mind and bring it back to that third eye sector, that is one rep. And every time you do that, you strengthen your focus, you strengthen your ability and the speed at which you refocus. That is why meditation is important. And people just don't understand that. They think they're failing because their mind is wandering. In fact, if your mind wasn't wandering, if you could just sit down and meditate perfectly for 30 minutes, you'd experience almost none of the benefits of meditation. There'd be no neuroplasticity stimulated. Now, an open meditation is very similar, but it's when you want to kind of stimulate exteroception. And the way that you do that is basically by either having your eyes open and focusing on a distant object. So an object maybe 3 to 4 feet away from your field of view. And generally downwards as well is a lot easier than upwards, just as a little side point. Or by closing your eyes still and listening to something. So if you have like a clock ticking, listening to that can provide this level of exteroception. But basically you're focusing on an external thing in this form of meditation. And again, you'll wander. So if you've chosen to look at something in front of you, your gaze will naturally wander. You'll find yourself looking slightly off to the sides of it, above it, below it, various places. And again, you have to bring your field of vision back to that thing. It's those reps again, and that is what builds true focus. Every time you stop looking at it and bring it back, that is when the neuroplasticity and the magic of meditation is actually happening. But what do you do with your breathing? And breathing is an extremely important part of meditation. And again, you have to ask yourself before you do it, you have to set your intention of why you're meditating, and you have to say, do I want to become more aware or more relaxed? And this will influence how you breathe. Because if you decide that you want to become more alert after your meditation, which you can do, meditation isn't just a relaxing thing, it can be very energizing, then you need to focus on your inhale more. So focus on sharper and deeper inhales and more shallow exhales. So a breathing pattern like this, like just kind of, it makes sense, but just breathe more in than you breathe out. Try a few breaths right now. But if you want to do the opposite, of course, if you're trying to relax, then focus more on the exhale. So have a more shallow, less conscious inhale and a more conscious exhale. But breathing is extremely important. And especially if you're doing an introspective meditation, then you need to focus on your breath and almost make it an unnatural and deliberate form of breath. So just breathe in, either cyclically, like just, but focusing on both, because people have a tendency of focusing on the inhale but not the exhale. That's just a bodily function. So you're actually triggering your diaphragm to inhale, but when you exhale, that's just a natural process. It's kind of the absence of triggering. So when you're meditating, especially introspectively, you want to be triggering both. You want to be triggering an actual inhale and an exhale and purposefully doing both of them. That's a very crucial way of kind of connecting introspectively and thinking about that point of your diaphragm. If you don't want to think about the third eye, if that hurts or it's too overwhelming, you can think about that diaphragm, the point at which you inhale and exhale. But yeah, there are lots of different breathing techniques you can do. So one is box breathing, which is where you inhale for 4 seconds, hold it for 4 seconds, exhale for 4 seconds, and hold that for 4 seconds. Or there's different forms of cyclical breathing, where you inhale for 4 seconds, hold it for 7, exhale for 8. That's a more relaxing breath. There are various different breathing techniques you can do, but the important thing is to be deliberate with the way that you breathe. And then a lot of people also ask me about time frame, because for some reason they think that you need to be meditating for hours. And you really don't. I mean, also, meditation is weird because it's one of the only practices that actually shortens when you get better at it. So if you can meditate really well, then actually you only need to do 5 or 6 minutes of meditation. Whereas maybe if you're more of a beginner, you have to do it a bit longer to get the effects, but still, not that long. So studies found that basically about 5 minutes of meditation, even as low as 3 minutes of meditation, has a lot of the benefits that meditation brings. There was a study, I can't remember exactly who it was by, Dr. Judson Brewer. I've got a laptop here as well where I've got all my other notes, my more in-depth notes. But Dr. Judson Brewer did a study where he tested 13-minute meditation. This was guided meditation as well, by the way. And he tested that for 8 weeks and found a lot of the same benefits of like people who meditated for hours. So really that is the kind of sweet spot, anywhere between about 5 minutes and 13 minutes. Try and push as much as you can towards 13 minutes, but especially at the beginning, it'll be easier to do like less time. And then another question that I get a lot is, should you do guided or unguided meditation? And here's what I have to say, is basically unguided meditation is better. It just is. But as a beginner, it's much easier to consistently meditate in a guided way. It's not exactly the same, because the problem with guided meditation is it gives you those external reminders to refocus, and so your brain isn't doing that as much by itself. So it's not strengthening the same sort of refocusing pathways because it's getting an external thing to do it. And also it can be quite distracting just to have someone speaking. Like you can get a lot deeper with an unguided meditation, but it is harder to do an unguided meditation. It just is. If you're a beginner, it'll be very difficult for you to do that, especially for a prolonged period of time. Whether if you have a guide, it'll bring you through that and it'll kind of take you through the steps a lot more easily, especially if you're literally just starting meditation. So if you're just starting, go guided. And Medito is a great free app. It's not a sponsor or anything, although I wish it was. It's a great app with guided meditations. But yeah, if you're further along, go for unguided meditation. And the other thing is don't do guided meditation for too long, because you can build a kind of reliance on the guide to the point where it actually becomes quite difficult to do an unguided meditation if you're too used to guided meditation. So maybe if you've been doing guided meditation for a while now, a few months, try and do some unguided meditation. So what are the benefits of meditation? And the first one is enhanced focus and attention. And we've spoken about this one before with the relationship with that Japanese study and what it found. But basically, yeah, meditation improves your focus and your ability to refocus. In fact, it enhances your brain's efficiency. It enhances the efficiency of the neurons and the neural pathways that are kind of responsible for maintaining attention. So it's very important. Meditation does that. It means basically you'll have a longer attention span. Maybe you'll actually be able to watch one of my videos the whole way through, or you'll be able to read a book the whole way through without having to kind of reread the same page again and again. It's quite a useful skill to master, and it is definitely a skill. That's the thing with meditation, is basically what it does is promote a lot of neuroplasticity. So it's one of the only things that you can do that actually makes a lot of changes in the brain quite quickly and in quite a lot of different areas. Positive changes, that is. Obviously drugs make huge changes on the brain too, but meditation promotes huge neuroplasticity. That's the brain's ability to change. So just do it because it helps you a lot. And focus and attention are one way that it does that. Now the second way, again we've talked about it, but it's improved interoceptive and exteroceptive awareness. And basically what that means is your kind of body to mind control, the relationship between those two things. And you've heard so many people speak about it, like have good body to mind control, listen to your body and whatever. This will improve that. It's a really stupid point, but if you meditate for long enough, for example, you'll be able to feel your own heartbeat. So if I close my eyes now, I can feel every time that my heart beats. Obviously that is a useless skill to have, right? But widely speaking, it does those things. You'll know more when you're feeling a certain way. If you're feeling stress, you'll actually be able to feel that stress. It's very difficult to explain to someone who isn't experienced in meditating. But if you can build up that repertoire of a good few months of meditation, 8 weeks like the study found, then you can start to feel that more introspective way of living. You'll know more about what's happening in your brain. Minute changes to your heartbeat, your blood pressure, you'll be able to actually feel. Then the next one is a big one, and it's quite frequently cited, but meditation is one of the only practices that actually improves your brain. So for starters, it increases grey matter density. And that's very important for brain function. It increases it in the prefrontal cortex, which, like we said, is responsible for emotions and cognitive thought. The hippocampus, the ACC, so the anterior cingulate complex, and the amygdala. Again, we've spoken about that. The ACC is responsible for kind of interpreting your bodily functions. The amygdala is in the most easy way to describe it, is when you have something scary or stressing, the amygdala is the thing that reacts to it and then sends things through the body to the adrenal glands, which pump out norepinephrine, things like that. So it's very important that you develop these things. But the hippocampus as well is very important. So in fact, meditation increases hippocampal volume. It is one of the only practices that actually grows your brain, and that's why it's so important. If you have a consistent meditation practice, your hippocampus will grow. And that is important for things like memory. So if you're shit at tests and you can never remember what's going on in them, then this will help. It will grow your hippocampus. Then number 4 is reduced activity in the amygdala. So we just spoke about the amygdala, but basically it makes it work less, especially during the times that you are meditating, because there aren't as many external factors coming in. There's just less stress. And basically if you do that, it reduces stress. Your amygdala communicates with something called the HPA, which is responsible for telling your adrenal glands, which are just here, right above your kidney, triangular glands. It basically tells them to release norepinephrine, which is also called adrenaline. So if you can reduce amygdala function, basically you can reduce the thing that releases stress. So all these things like ashwagandha, which are adaptogenic, and they reduce stress. Meditation does almost the exact same thing, but it does it in a much more focused and direct way by actually cutting down amygdala function. It's very important. And then finally, meditation decreases activity in your DMN, or your default mode network. And we have a study here which is called A Wandering Mind is an Unhappy Mind. And this is a study that came about around the birth of the smartphone. So it gave a lot of people an iPhone. I think it was 2,000 people, it gave them an iPhone. And basically, what the study did was at random intervals throughout the day, it would ping those people and ask, what are you doing right now and what are you feeling right now? And it found some very crucial things. Basically, what it discovered was that for about 50% of people, not 50% of people necessarily, but 50% of the times they polled these candidates, except for during sex, their minds weren't on the activity that they were doing. They were thinking about other things. But then it also showed, more importantly, that there's an extremely strong correlation between an unpresent mind, so a mind that's thinking about something else when it's doing an activity, and unhappiness. That literally thinking about other stuff and not being present causes depression. Very interesting study. But basically the implications of that are meditation reduces this default mode network activity. Thereby it decreases mind wandering and rumination. So it stops you thinking about other stuff and lets you stay present and focused. And this directly causes more happiness in you. Anyway, thanks for watching that video. Drop a subscribe if you gained any value from it, and come and chat to me on Discord or give me a call. Manifest excellence, brother. I'm so proud of you. Goodbye.